first question. Where were each of you born?
What?
Where were you born? Do you want to go get your hearing aid? Where were you born?
In the LDS hospital.
In the LDS hospital, both in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Different years.
Okay.
That isn't how we met.
Pretty close.
So what were some of your hobbies growing up?
Oh, well,
Must
if
be you.
you ask him, it will take the whole rest of the tape. My hobbies, did I have any, huh? Not many. I had 4 brothers, so with no sisters. You couldn't play dolls, you couldn't do anything, and we didn't have video games. I went fishing a lot, and I caught a lot of fish, but only because my dad made me. But it was okay, it was fun. And what other hobbies? I liked to read, I read a lot. That was about my hobbies.
Later on you did some toll painting.
Well, yeah, not when I was a kid.
Growing up.
But toll painting was not that I loved the hobby, it was my escape from my children. It was when my kids were
We
little,
needed that.
and I didn't get a day away from the kids, so Dave agreed to babysit so I could go learn to toll paint. And I had 5 good friends taking the class with me, so it was girls' night out.
Yeah.
And I did learn to toll
Who were
paint.
those? You had Lou Edwards?
Gilbert Lou taught it. Lou Edwards taught it. Gilbert Richardson, Susan Catanzaro, Mary Oram, Patty Adams, Von Elfries, and myself. I think that was all of us. There were 6 of us, and we went all the time. It started out as a Relief Society homemaking class, and we couldn't finish it that night. She said, "You'd come to my house and finish it." We had so much fun, we said we'd like to keep doing it. She said, "I'll teach." And we even followed her after she left Salt Lake. She went to Farmington, and we went to Farmington to keep toll painting.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my only hobbies. Don't you feel sorry for me?
Hobbies.
Now listen
I've
to
gotta
his.
think. Let's see. I used to like play baseball a lot, so I played baseball all summer long, and that was kind of a hobby. But sports activity, I always collected a few rocks here and there, and I've got quite a few still.
Patio food.
And
And,
let's see, I like to go fishing.
wait, you forgot the collection.
Collection.
Coins.
Oh, I've collected stamps and coins and stuff.
Bottles.
Collected bottles
Antique car
and
parts.
now collect stoneware that was made in Red Wing that has Utah advertising on it. And I always liked old cars, but I could never afford them. Other than what I had to drive was kind of old because I couldn't afford a newer one. So
I think you forgot hunting.
I said hunting
Didn't you?
quickly. I said
Duck hunting, deer hunting, pheasant hunting, rabbit hunting.
a little bit of hunting.
Yeah. Now remember, I had a dad that fished too much, so I wanted to find someone to marry that didn't know what a fishing pole was, so that he wouldn't go fishing. And instead, I got someone that fished and hunted and collected and yeah,
Lucky.
fishing being the minor.
I used to go bowling once in a while too. And Connie beat me once.
Yes, I did. He was always better than when we played 7 games that night, and I beat him 4 out of 7 games. Then we quit bowling because I didn't want to lose to him after that. But
Quit while you're ahead,
did
huh?
beat you. I've got the score sheet to that somewhere. I did beat you.
Yep. Yep. If I haven't destroyed it.
He doesn't, because he hasn't thrown anything out, ever. If there's any history to it, it has never been thrown away, I promise. No. You wouldn't have thrown it out. Did we mention that he collects things?
I think
Okay,
so.
everything. Okay.
What funny stories do you have from your childhood?
Stories?
Milling a dollar.
Mailing a dollar bill.
Oh, yes. Yeah, my parents sent me to buy some milk or something at the grocery store. Gave me a silver dollar. And then I was supposed to go pick up something at the grocery store anyway. And then a letter to mail. So the mail box was over by the grocery store, so I walked around over, it was on 6th South, and back then 8th West, it's 9th West now, but I got over there and I put the dollar in the mailbox and then realized what I had done. And then, so then when I got home, I told my folks that somebody robbed me. Took my dollar. But then the guy that was over the post office, or a portion of the post office, lived right next door. And he told my dad about that somebody found a silver dollar in the mailbox. And that blew my excuse, so I was just dumb. And another time, I raised pigeons, and then for a while I'd heard stories that you could teach magpies how to talk. So we rode our bikes out along the Jordan River, way out Davis County way, and you climb up in a tree, and when you get up in the tops of the tree in the springtime, the magpies can't fly well. They can kind of half fly and half hop to the next branch down. And so we'd go up in the trees, and then we'd shake the limbs, and then the bird would kind of half fly and half jump to the next limb down, and you'd do that again, and pretty soon it'd be on the ground. It was easy to catch. Now, we were never able to catch or to teach them how to talk, and I don't know, but I guess later somebody said, oh, you have to split underneath the tongue, and then possibly you can, but
He still believes it.
maybe she's the one that told me that. I don't know. It was before I knew her. But when I was up in the top of one of the trees, I grabbed the branch and I pulled as hard as I could. The branch broke, and I was heading straight head first for the ground. And before I hit the ground, my ankle caught in the fork of a branch. And what's the odds of that happening? And so here I was, upside down, you know, and when I'd go down, I could touch my hands to the ground, and then I'd spring back up. And when it finally stopped bouncing around, I was able to get my ankle out of that and drop to the ground. And so that kind of put a kibosh on catching those. So, and later on, I kind of looked back and I thought, you know, the odds of that happening and that branch being right in that one place, it had to be more than just a coincidence. That there was probably a reason why I was allowed to live another day. And you know, and this gal here, and 5 kids, and a bunch of grandkids later, and that's a pretty good reason. So, you know, but, and another story I had when I went, was when I was 8 years old. I learned how to throw a baseball primarily by throwing rocks. And we would go behind my neighbor's house, and along the back fence, we would put up bottles or cans, and then we would throw rocks at them and knock them over. We thought that was cool. So when I was 8, we were able to get in Little League. But the Salt Lake Bees back then, they had invited these kids that played Little League up to Dirk's Field, and we got out in field, and we were supposed to throw a ball from outfield, have it bounce once, and then go over home plate. And I was able to clear from center field, throw the ball, it bounced once, and a perfect strike right over the plate. But I had a good arm back then. But now, I think I threw too many rocks and baseballs because I don't think I could throw a baseball that far for anything anymore. So, but that was when I was 8 years old. That was a long ways to throw.
I thought he was going to say it was a long time ago. It was.
Well, didn't your friends like put a corner on the ballpark every morning or something? You
Reserve
wake
it
up
for
and
you.
We would go play baseball early in the morning, and we'd go down there and we'd play. And if somebody had to go home to do some chores, one of us at a time would leave. One or two of us at a time would leave. That way, there was always somebody reserving that ball diamond all day long until the baseball game started later that evening. So we played a lot of baseball. So it was a lot of fun back then.
I don't know if my mind goes back far. I first lived on Alameda Avenue, which is in the middle of town, behind Mrs. Backer's Bakery. And to go to school, we went up on the avenues. And so I do remember, my brother even brought this up the other day, we'd go on to South Temple and go into a bank on South Temple as we were walking to school. And we'd go in and ride their elevator up one floor. And when you came out their back door, you were further up the street. And so we'd sneak into the bank every day and ride the elevator to school. And I'm sure they just loved us. But we do that quite often. And I also remember my brother talking me into climbing a barbed wire fence that Mom told us to never cut through that way. And so I cut my ankle on the way to school, and it bled pretty bad. And a few days later, it got infection in it. But I never told my mom about it till she found the bloody sock hiding under my bed because I thought I'd get in trouble for going that way to school. I cut it up pretty bad.
And did you?
Yeah, I got in trouble.
Yeah.
And then when I was there too, I think my brother and one of the girls across the street were teaching me to either roller skate or ride bikes. I'm going to roller skate. And there was a medical center right above us with a parking lot with a hill in it. And they got me going down the hill and let go of me, and I ran into a tree, and a branch in the tree stuck in my head. I had to go home and have my mom pull it out. And I have pictures with this big open sore in my forehead, kind of like yours. Because I hit the tree, and they'd always laugh about the hole in the head, probably. And after that, I don't know, we moved when I was 8. Oh, and one time when I was there, I got sick, and there were no phones. They couldn't call from the school and tell your parents you were sick. And so I remember it was really neat to get sick because the principal, who was a guy at that time, he never could have done it today, took me home in his convertible. One of the only times I ever rode in a really neat sports car convertible. But he had to drive me home because I was sick. And so, but when I got to the new house down there, I don't think I did anything crazy. It's just no stories.
I do hear one about a baseball field in the backyard.
Oh, that was back up to the old house too, and I got in real trouble. That was all my brother's fault. My brothers, all 4 brothers, they wanted me to play baseball, and we decided home plate was a new patch of lawn that my dad had just replanted. And as we played baseball, we tore it up pretty bad. And the pact was, don't tell Dad that we did this. Well, so we agreed we wouldn't tell him. Both of my brothers were afraid to lie to my dad because they'd get in trouble. So they told him what we did. I was the only one that lied. So I was the only one that got in trouble. They made me play ball. They made me run the lawn. But I got in trouble because I lied.
You kept your promise.
Yes, I promised them I wouldn't tell. It got me in real trouble. But it was my brother's fault, and I still tell him that today. Because if I told the truth, my brothers would have beat me up. So, you know. Yeah. So I was the one that got in trouble. I'll tell the story. Oh, first of all, I met your grandpa. I don't recommend this. I met him on a street corner. Because my girlfriend, the 2 girlfriends, the Flinton girls, Leona and Kathleen, one my age and one a year younger, I think Leona had just broken up with a boyfriend. So we needed to console her by buying an icy at the 7-Eleven. 7-Elevens were named 7-Eleven because they opened at 7 every morning and closed at 11 every night. So we had to get to the 7-Eleven before it closed, and it was 10:30 at night. So we ran down and got ices, and as we're walking home, this carload of boys goes around the block couple of times looking at us. And we wouldn't have said anything, we were just walking home. But one girl, and she was the shy one, yells, "What are you looking at? Why are you making him ride all alone?" Because one was in the back seat and three of them were in the front seat or whatever. And Dave was driving the car. They screeched over to the curb and talked to us, and they were just bored because their girlfriends were at girls' camp. And so after Mutual, they didn't have anything to do, so they were driving around our neighborhood. And we talked to them, but we never told them where we lived, or actually, we only told them what our first name was. But then all of a sudden, one of the boys says, "Well, tell us where you live." And we said no, and we took off walking. So they woke you up because he had fallen asleep talking. And they hit
were
him.
so excited.
They hit him and told him to drive, and they started chasing us home. So we ran in our mutual teacher's backyard, thought we had lost them. They were gone. We'd never meet them again. The next day was church, and we're walking home from church, the same three girls, and a different car that we didn't recognize was waiting down the street to see where we were walking in the same neighborhood, and pulled up and said, "So this is where you live." After that, they talked quite often, but they had different girlfriends, we had different boyfriends, and so, Then he dated my girlfriend first, Leona. Then he dated me. And I think about that time. No, because before you dated us. After we'd met. They came by and their girlfriends wanted to check out the girls that they had met. And so rather than introduce their girlfriends, they put them in the back seat of the car, pulled up to talk to us, and said, "Oh, Dave's got a cousin and her sister here." Now, if it had been her sister when you said, "These are my two cousins," but he was lying to us about their girlfriends in the back seat, and he said, "This is my cousin and her sister." And we're rolling our eyes like, yeah, right. When they pulled away, we said, which one was Linda and which one was Nadine, which was their girlfriends. And they hadn't fooled us at all, but they told us that his cousins were in the back seat. But it was their girlfriends coming to check out the new girls they had met. They hadn't started dating any of us by then, but the girlfriends had to come check us out. Yeah, and so we've always given him a bad time about his cousins. Be careful, he dates cousins. Yeah, it was the girlfriends in the back seat of the car.
So
No comment.
Did I get the story right? I got the story right. He did drive fast. Don't say how many speeding tickets he had, but just how many cars. Okay. When I met him, part of the time when we first started dating, they took your driver's license away right after I met you. You were driving when I met you, but right after that he lost his driver's license. So he had to come see me on a bicycle because he lost his driver's license for too many points for speeding. But when you hear the speeding stories, one night he got a ticket for going too fast and he got mad at the cop. So when he pulled out, he went way too slow and the cop gave him a second ticket for going too slow. But another time, and that was the telltale one, there was a cop up by the city and county building writing a ticket to someone and leaning on their window.
Federal building, wasn't it?
I thought it was by the city and county building, but I don't know. And Dave pulled right up behind the cop in that lane, and when he got there, he laid on the horn, and the cop jumped in the person's window.
And I took off,
Then he
wheeled my tires up the, and
Is that when they followed you up the avenues? So he got to the avenues, and the avenues go like this. He was going airborne and hitting the front of his car. He was going so fast. And the cops were chasing him, and they pulled him over. And I can't believe it. They should have given him reckless driving and hauled him to jail. They gave him a speeding ticket and told him to be good.
and I wasn't.
Yeah. And then I got out and walked home one day because he was playing chicken on a one-way bridge. Where was that bridge?
It was a two-way bridge, but it was a little bit narrow.
Oh, two-way. One car could go this way and then one guy could, two cars couldn't pass each other on the bridge. You had to wait for a car to come the other way. But they would play chicken to see who would veer off and not, yeah. And it scared me to death, and I asked him to stop, and I stopped, so then I got out to walk home because he drove like a crazy man. Yes. And because of that, when we first got married, our rent was $40 a month, but our car insurance was $4,000 a year, which was more than our rent, so we could drive because his driving record was too bad. Mind you, I've never had a ticket.
I didn't make that much a year, did I?
We paid it all for your driving. We had a high risk policy with Frosty. Frosty was the name of our agent, yes. And they didn't want to insure you anymore because you were a bad driver.
Sometimes your memory's just too good.
Now I drive faster than him. He drives really slow now. But he didn't back then. And then if you want to hear another good story out of that, he used to love to go to the, what's the name of the racing thing on 21st South?
Oh,
Rocky Mountain Racing. And you used to go watch the drag racing, but you could park and see it for free if you just stayed in your car and parked on the street just past it. And I knew that because he'd take me out all the time saying, look at this. And he paid sometimes to go race his car there. But we would park and watch it. And so I knew what he would do on Sunday. Well, he had broke up with me and gone back with a different girlfriend. He broke up with me several times. And so he was dating somebody else. And I saw him on the way up to church. I saw him. He almost ran me over on the street. He didn't see me. But I knew where he was going. He was going to the raceway. I get home and his mother calls me and says, Connie, I hate to ask, but we've locked ourselves out of our house. And Dave has our other key. Can you tell me where David is? And I didn't tell her we broke up. I said, you could find him out at the racetrack. He's on the street just past it. So she went out there to get the key and found him with another girl. She called me and apologized. She was so embarrassed. She did not know you'd broke up with me and were dating Nadine again. She was dying of embarrassment, but I told her where to find you. You were at the racetrack. Yes, you were. Are we out of film?
I'm just making sure we're still rolling.
Okay, you better tell them
Can't
the
miss any of
story.
these stories.
Because all we could tell a whole lot on Grandpa's dating stuff. We won't go there.
Okay.
He was a cad.
I was a what?
Cad. You had lots of girlfriends
That's a cat?
at the same time.
What's that?
One night he had a date with me
Cattle.
and my girlfriend the same night. But you didn't make it to her date because the other guy we were dating with made sure you were late to that one. Because he liked me better than her. That's true.
Aren't you glad we're doing this?
That's true. That's true.
Where were we?
Next question.
Okay. So Grandpa tells about the gauze story.
Oh, the gauze? Okay. I was to the doctor. I guess I had a sinus infection or something. And anyway, he'd soak the gauze and then he stuffed it up my nose. And, a little thing of gauze is like 10 yards.
But he told you to leave it there all
Yeah.
day long and then take it
Yeah.
out.
But, I got out of the doctor's office and I walked out on the street. And his office was on South Temple, between Main and State Street.
Right where the City Creek Mall is.
Right where there was a lot of people. And, I had to sneeze. And so I sneezed and this gauze come hanging out my nose and it was embarrassing. And so I didn't know what to do, so I just took and started pulling this gauze out of my nose, 10 yards of it, a lot of it right there on South Temple, and all of these people were watching me pull 10 yards of gauze out of my nose. Throw it in the garbage
I don't know that
can.
you got over the sinus infection.
But anyway, I've been known to sneeze in inopportune times. So, hay fever does that sometimes.
So here there's a story about a snowball sticking to a glove.
That was him too. Our first house was on West Temple, and we lived in a little mother-in-law house in the backyard. It was a cinder block home that only had a living room, bathroom, kitchen, and bedroom, just 4 little square rooms. And so we were in between the two houses. He was coming in the house, and there's a big bush and a tree there. And he decided to throw a snowball up in the tree and make snow come down on me. And he threw the snowball up, but his glove stuck to the snowball and went flying up. So up in the tree was the snowball with his glove attached. And he just looked so frustrated. So he goes over to get it, and he's going to shake it out of the tree and make it fall down. When he shook it, he lost his balance and fell down. All the snow in the tree came down and covered him. He looked like a snowman. It just tons of snow came down. And then when he's sitting there going, what in the world happened? Plunk, the glove hits him on the head. Falls out of the tree.
Oh,
So-
well.
And I didn't get it on film, but it was pretty good. It was pretty
Yeah.
good.
Wait.
Her grandpa was acting in a movie at one point.
A movie. Oh, yeah.
That's skipping way.
Because of my skills.
Yeah. Not because of your acting skills. I think it was Craig's fault. I think it's your dad's fault. And they said they were making a movie. His name is T.C. Christensen. He makes movies. And he was making a movie about the life of Hinckley. And he said he really needed a man that looked like Hinckley in his later years. And he said he just got to find someone if he knew someone. And I think your grandma Peggy says, well, my son-in-law's father gets told all the time that he looks like President Hinckley. And he said, I'll have to go meet him. So some guy just shows up one day. I think you were out working on the bushes out here in the driveway. And he comes up and he says, I think I need to meet you. And he says, I do need to meet you. He said, you've been told you look like President Hinckley. And he said, yeah, a few times. He said, good, I need you to be in a movie. And Dave says, I don't know how to act. He said, doesn't matter, you look like him. And so he told him he wanted him in the movie. And Dave kind of went, I don't know if I can do this. But it worked out well because Dave was able to get off work the hours he needed. It was pretty casual. And he told me I could come along and see how movies were made. So it was really entertaining to watch. And,
So when I was 60, I looked like a 90-year-old.
yep.
So I got to, but now I don't look like him anymore. I look too old.
Were there parts of the movie that you enjoyed the most that you were making, or anything?
They cut those out.
What were they?
Do you remember the parts he's in? He's in when they wanted to straighten the tree. That if you don't teach a tree to grow the right way, and he was planting the tree, and he was teaching his grandson to cut wood and to work with his hands. So they left those parts in, but there had been some parts that they'd cut out. One of the grandchildren, supposedly came to him and said, "What does a prophet do, Grandpa?" And he says, before he could answer, he says, well, he makes decisions for the church, and he does this, and he does that. And he went, oh, my other grandpa does magic. Like, all you are is a prophet. And my other grandpa's a magician.
Yeah.
But the other one, the funniest story in it, and the filming on it was really cute. The person that played President Hinckley's wife was indeed his mother, his sister-in-law. So his wife's sister. And as she was playing the part, she was decorating a Christmas tree, and they had Dave looking out the window at Christmas time. And the wife, or Marjorie Hinckley, supposedly said, oh, this is my favorite time of year, and these are my favorite lights, meaning the Christmas lights. And President Hinckley, or Dave, said, those are my favorite lights. She looked up what? And he said, they're tail lights. The grandkids are going home. And it was supposed to make them laugh. And while they were filming the movie, T.C. Christensen told them to look out the window and to burst out laughing and to not quit laughing until he said cut. Well, I was behind him watching him film, and something had gone wrong with the equipment. And so they had quit filming, but they were still talking. And they got the part, and Dave said, what if I can't laugh that long? And Marjorie's sister said, I'll give you a hip and you'll start laughing. And so they're sitting looking out the window, and they're laughing and keeping it up. And TC's sitting back there wondering how long they'll keep laughing. And finally, Marjorie's sister yelled, cut! Turned around and said, I knew something was wrong. But they cut those parts out of the movie because when he made the movie, he decided to focus more on the younger life growing into the prophet than once he was prophet. And they didn't have enough time to film it all. So the parts when he was older got kind of cut out. So that didn't make the movie. But it was pretty funny when they were laughing.
So, how's being grandparents?
Better than being parents. You get to spoil the grandkids, love them to
grand.
pieces. And if they act up or any of these stories happen, Their parents get to deal with it. You send them home, you give them anything they want, you spoil them rotten, and then you say, now, go home and let the parents handle it. It's the best, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And it serves the parents right.
It's payback. It's payback time.
Yeah.
Yep. Being grandparents is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. So.
Jump back to the wedding. So, tell me about your wedding day, where you were married, and anything that goes along with that. Best man and booze,
Wow.
any of that stuff.
Your best man was Ray. No? Was it Ray?
I don't know.
I think so. And Brian Leary was your usher. Wasn't he? Or was he best man? Was Brian Leary?
He might have been.
Maybe he was the best man. But one of my maid of honors ended up dating him. Met him there, but she said she was waiting for a missionary and wouldn't date anyone. But when we got the wedding pictures back, she says, oh, he was so cute. And I said, well, he's asked us to line you up, but you're not dating anyone else. And she said, him I would date. And so we lined them up on our 1 month anniversary, and they got married a month later, and they have 9 kids. 8 kids, I don't know. Yeah, they got married. They met one of my maid of honors and his, maybe it was your best man.
So we were friends. We were 2 LDS girls that, in this office of weird people.
Yeah.
And so we spent time eating lunch together every day and talking. So we were really good friends.
Good.
And I knew her during all the time when she was dating Dave, and getting engaged and
Are
getting
you recording that?
yeah.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
recording. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
good.
so we were good friends, and we went through the choosing the stuff for the wedding together and the fabric for the bridesmaids' dresses and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then Brian, you can tell him how you knew Dave.
Well, we grew up in the same ward together, and we're friends, best friends. In fact, I even started singing in the choirs because of him, because he was going to try out for the junior choir. I'd never sung in any choirs. He made it, and I didn't make it. So I went to the boys' choir with the sophomores for 1 year. Then I caught up with him, and we sang in a cappella together. But we're from the same ward, but we hung out, went rock hunting and bottle hunting and arrowhead hunting and deer hunting with him. He did all those exciting things, which I didn't do.
We're both real boring, but Connie and Dave are pretty exciting, so they made life fun for us. Yeah.
But so I was going to Weber State University or college at that time. And so they invited me to the wedding and wedding breakfast. So I left school that day and drove straight to the Salt Lake Temple and saw them get married. And then drove to the Pancake House for their wedding breakfast and was in the lobby. That's when she came in. That's the first time we laid sight on each other.
Nice.
So I got to know her name at that time. And then we went in and they had a U-shaped breakfast or dinner. There wasn't bridesmaids on bride's family on one side and groom's the other, so we were apart from there. But then as we were leaving, somebody was going to introduce us, and I spoke up that we'd met, and I knew her name, and spoke her name. And that's how we first saw each other.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great.
Then we were both in the line at night, the wedding line.
Yeah.
Our bridesmaid.
And our
on
first
side.
date was at their house. They had a little apartment, but some little old lady had a apartment right, where it was by the Temple Square, really
Yeah.
close there. And yeah, so our first date was at their house. Yeah, when they were just newly married, so that was fun.
Wow.
The girls fixed dinner.
There you go.
And we played games.
Nice.
Didn't we buy a car from that little old lady in the apartment?
Maybe. Might have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Nice.
probably did.
Good.
So they moved. So they bought a house in North Salt Lake, and we bought a house in West Jordan. If only we would have both bought houses
Close
in
to
the
each
same
other.
place, we would have still been much closer. But they've been friends over the years.
So, and I don't know who my other maid of honors were. That's how important that is. It's not very important. One was my cousin. One was Kathleen, not Leona, because Leona had run away at that time. So Kathleen, Laura, the one that married Brian.
Mhm.
Oh, and Beasley, Vern, because we double dated with them. But yeah.
Linda.
So, and our wedding day, it went off pretty cool, except we were going to leave the next day to go to Disneyland. So we were just going to stay at our apartment that
It
night.
happened to be the opening day of pheasant season.
Yeah, and I didn't let you take a gun. But we were going to stay at our apartment and then go to Disneyland the next day. But Roy Flitton, who was the biggest tease in the world, Leona's dad, was a mailman, and he found out where we lived. We hadn't told anyone where we lived, but he knew it was close to the temple. So he had people watching for mail, and someone that I worked with sent their wedding invitation to me to arrive about the time I got married. Well, he hand-delivered it to the temple that day. It says, "I know where you live, and we will be waiting." So we ended up taking a hotel here in town
Yeah.
and staying because we didn't dare go home to our own apartment. So that kind of switched things off that day, and that was him. He delivered it to the temple as we were coming out of the temple and said, "I have mail for you. You live at 151 West North Temple."
Northwest.
North on West Temple, wherever I live.
For the Indian heads.
Yeah, and he had the address, so. But then we went on the honeymoon to Disneyland, but he was desperately sick. So we got a hotel in
And the
Anaheim.
pheasant flew right across in front of our car. On the
No wonder he
opening
was
day of
sick.
pheasant season.
That would
How-
make anyone sick.
How did I stay married to this man for 50 years? So I had to drive around Southern
Enough to make you just
California
sick.
looking for medicine for him so that you could go to Disneyland the next day because you had a bad fever and anyway. And I was afraid that if I drove around Anaheim, I wouldn't find the way back to the hotel. This was before cell phones, so I don't know what I'd have done if I got lost. It's like, how many blocks do I have to go to find a drugstore? 4 blocks down and 2 blocks over. And I had to kind of retrace my steps back. So, and then the other thing that happened that was kind of fun on the honeymoon is we had car trouble. The fan belt went out or something. It was screaming. We pulled in a service station. We didn't know what we were going to do. And the guy came and fixed it. And we said, "How much do we owe you?" And he said, "Not a penny." He said, "You're LDS, aren't you? And you're on your honeymoon." I thought, and just the way we were dressed and whatever, he was LDS. And he said, "I just assumed
Yeah.
you were LDS honeymooning here." And he said, "That's my gift to you." So he fixed our car for nothing.
Yeah.
Sent us on our way.
That's cool.
So that was...
So we went to the happiest place on earth.
We did before that, and you shouldn't do that now. We also went to
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, and we went in the Circus. It was its grand opening, the day it opened. And I wasn't supposed to be in there because I wasn't 21. But they weren't checking ID. So we had to go see it. And that was the
Probably
newest.
because we went in the construction.
We just about did. But it was brand new, and what the idea was at that time was as you were gambling or on the floor playing slot machines and whatever, circus acts were going on up above you. There was trapeze and whatever. So there were circus acts going on all the time. And there was a place where underage could be because there was a family floor. But down where the slot machines were, you weren't supposed to cut through, but we did. Because like I say, we walked in with the construction workers because it was just opening.
When you went to Tijuana as well as part of
We
that?
did go to Tijuana too, and I don't know that I would do that today, but we did go down to Tijuana. And I argued with some guy. We bought some pictures, the painting on the velvet. And I wanted this particular sunset one, I think it's still downstairs, and 2 small ones. And I think he wanted $40 for it. And I said, no, 20. And he said, no, 30. I knew you could argue. I said, no, 20. No, 25. No, 20. Anyway, he said, no, I can't sell you for that. I make no money. I said, oh, you do too. I said, $20. We kept arguing. And he argued down all the time. I kept threatening to leave. And finally I said, no, I'm not taking it if it isn't 20. And we were leaving. And he finally said, all right, $20, but I not wrap it for you. And he turned to Dave and says, you have a bull-headed woman.
Is that why you got the Matador one? Is the bullheaded?
Yeah.
it's the bullheaded woman. So I got the 3 pictures for $20. I got the big one and 2 small ones, but he wasn't going to wrap them. He was really mad at me. But Dave wouldn't argue with them enough. And I'd been down there with my dad before. My dad loved to barter. He loved to go down there and talk him into prices. And so I knew that you were never supposed to pay the price. You were supposed to argue with them and get it down lower. And I did. I don't know if I wanted the picture that bad, but I did. And we did bring it home. And then we had to figure out how to get in the car when we got out because it was almost bigger than the car, the picture. But we got it home. Mine was, I worked at least 25, 30 years in primary. I think I've been in about 8 primary presidencies, taught every class there was. And I thought I would grow old and die in primary because that was my favorite. And still wouldn't mind it, but I don't know that I could do it now. And served in 2 or 3 Relief Society presidencies. Was Relief Society president once, hardest thing I ever did. Hope to never do that again. And what else? Probably one of my favorite, taught the teenagers in Sunday school. That was probably one of my favorites. What was your favorites?
Well, I had a lot of callings over the years, so, I don't know, I enjoyed being scoutmaster to some extent, it was a big responsibility, but it was nice. We went up into the Granddaddy Lake Basin for our summer camps, and we picked that primarily because that's where I went when I was a scout. So we went back up there.
One of his scouts come back and thanked him this year and still goes up there. And he's been a bishop since then. Laurie Durant came back.
Lord.
So that was kind of nice, but I think the thing that was most amazing to me in all my callings is when I was the bishop. You get somebody that is a lot more comfortable with a fishing pole in his hand or a shotgun in his hands than standing up at the pulpit talking to people, and then you feel that inspiration as you counsel people, and and you know that counsel wasn't coming from you, but it was coming from a higher source, and see that it changes lives, and it wasn't me, but it was through me that happened. And then you realize, that's how Joseph Smith, a young boy, could do what he did. And I'm sure that Bishop Collins is more comfortable with a golf club in his hand than standing up there at the pulpit. But that he gets the same joy that I got when you see the miracles happen through you. And that's what's special.
This goes with what you were just talking about.
What miracles have you seen in your lives?
Probably one of the biggest ones involved both of us. My best friend, Julie Thomas, was dying. She'd had many health problems her whole life, and she was dying. She'd had a couple kinds of cancer. But the biggest part, she had her heart rupture during heart surgery. They kind of pieced it back together and gave her a few years to live. And so when she was actually dying, I'd been up to the hospital daily for about 4 months. She'd been in the hospital about 4 or 5 months, off and on. She'd been in several times. And she had a daughter who had made some really bad choices and was actually currently in jail for drug problems, and Julie had been raising her children. And Carrie was allowed to come out of jail the day before her mother passed away, but her mom was already in a coma at that time. And as her mom died, most of the people in the room, her brothers and all of us that were there, were pretty calm with it because Julie had been sick for a long time, and it was her time to go. But her daughter was just distraught. And her daughter came to me and just hugged me to pieces and said, I killed my mom. I killed my mom. I said, Carrie, you didn't kill your mom. Your mom had bad health. She said, yeah, it was my fault. And I said, well, you sped it up. I said, your mom should not have been raising your children. And Carrie told me at that time, she said, Connie, I know how to see my mom again. I know what I need to do, and I'm going to do it. And I didn't think much of it. I kind of thought, yeah, right, that's not going to happen.
Believe that when we see it.
Yeah. And she said, no, I do know. And I said, that's all your mom would want, Carrie, is for you to fix your life and make it so you can be together as a family. And Dave was bishop at the time. Carrie went to see Dave as a bishop. She not only, she shortly after that had another baby by another guy who had also been in jail and was a felon. She went to community college and finished her degree at community college, went to University of Utah, finished a degree there, taught the gospel to her boyfriend at the time and my later husband, got him baptized in the church, and then moved back to Michigan to go to law school and got a law degree, and at that time called us and told us they were going to go to the temple, be sealed to her mother and family and her children. And so we flew out to Michigan, and I got to stand proxy for Julie so that she could be sealed to her family. So we watched her, and she has since been Relief Society president, primary president, and he served in a bishopric. And that was a miracle. It was a 180-degree turn.
Yeah.
They'd both been in prison and in a bad place. And the gospel helped them turn their lives around 100%.
And Ted had sent Chris back, her husband, back to talk to me. And he knew what we felt about adoption. And was sure that I was going to counsel him to
Not get married and have the baby adopted.
Yeah. And so when I was done talking to Chris, I called Ted up and I said, when he comes in the door, give him a big hug and welcome him to the family.
Because Dave, through the Spirit, counseled him, go ahead and get married, have the baby, and fix your lives. And Ted said, if that's what you told him to do, I'll welcome him into the family. And it was good. It was good.
So it was pretty amazing. That's one of those miracles. And one that I'll never forget.
They were both a big part of when I got baptized and started going to church. Dave was the bishop, and he was actually the first bishop I ever talked to, and he was really kind and inviting, and I couldn't repay that either. They invited me to go talk with Bishop, with Carrie, when she was coming back to church, and that was the beginning of my my journey as well. Love you guys. It's been awesome to see you guys and visit with you guys over the years. You guys are the ones who helped us take the kids fishing for the first time, so that was awesome. And I know our kids love you to death. And Connie, your brownies. Kids will never stop thinking about those.
It's true.
Okay, my turn, I guess.
You gotta talk loud.
Shut up, Dad.
This is great.
Okay, so a couple things that come to mind for me is
Dave, Connie, she talks like me when I give a talk in church. Too emotional.
this is when my mom passed away, and she's at the hospital, and just got there to hold her hand, and as she passed away. And Dave took me into the chapel and just said the kindest things to me, even when I didn't deserve it. And he told me, he said, I want you to come, I'm the bishop over there now, and I want you to come back on my watch. And I can't tell you what it was, but it was the Lord's tender mercy. And I knew in my mind, body, and soul that everything was going to be okay. At that moment, I had a peace like I've never had ever. And then a motivation to do whatever it took. And to build upon that, as we started our law school journey, we hadn't been sealed yet because Chris had just got baptized. So we were waiting the year. And then, so amazing that Connie and Dave, that you guys came out to Michigan, and that Connie was able to sit in and proxy for my mom so I could be sealed to her. And anytime I've ever looked back in my life, whether I was on the right path or not, I see your faces. And I know you love me. And I just love you guys to the end of the world and back. And I'm just so thankful that I'm on the path I'm on now, and I feel that you've been a huge part of that. And I just hope one day I have a best friend like you, like you were to my mom. That's it for me.
And we saw lots of miracles 2 years ago when I was sick, in that I got sick at the right day, at the right minute, that sent me to the right specialist when they found the thyroid in that, and then with a kidney stone that made them tell the right doctor there was something on my lung that then found out the lung cancer. So all the time I was sent to specialist after specialist after specialist, and they'd kind of shake their heads like, I can't believe this is happening. And they were able to find that I had Cushing's caused from lung cancer and get it in plenty of time. And even though there was one time that they was taking me back in the ambulance, so she might not make it, everything fell in place, but it was just little miracles after little miracles. And I remember one of the priesthood blessings that it isn't necessarily the big miracles, sometimes it's the little tender mercies that, come at a time, but they all fell in place. Mm-hmm. So we've seen lots of them. We've seen miracles with our kids. Cindy's alive through being a miracle. Cindy had a disease called tularemia, and they caught it, just ironically. We thought it was an infected mosquito bite, but I took her in for a bad fever, and they said they didn't think it had anything related. But her regular doctor wasn't there that day, and the other doctor said, would you please have her tested for tularemia? He said, that's just crazy, because nobody ever gets tularemia. It's just really strange.
But he'd had one patient.
He had one other patient that year, and he was a fairly new doctor, and so he called me when he got home and said she indeed has tularemia. She has to have these special shots and special this and special that, and it kills a lot of people. And hers just fell in place and was healed beautifully. And when I went back to see her regular doctor after, he said, you can be grateful I was out of town, because I'd have never diagnosed tularemia. I'd have never known what it was. But you went to the right doctor on the right day, and he found it. Yeah. So.
One dad's heart attack, if it had happened when we were hunting,
if it had happened the week before up deer hunting, he'd have laid up on the mountain and died, I'm sure.
Yeah, the week before, we hiked in.
We hiked a lot.
Up city.
8 miles up
steep,
city.
Steep country and all.
Yeah.
And that particular, the next Saturday, we would normally
The only two
never
going were
even
Dave
think
and
of doing
Steve.
anything but going deer hunting. Unless we had our tags filled, we'd go deer hunting. We decided to go fishing instead. Driving back from fishing down the canyon,
He felt pains
I
in his arm.
pulled over and told Steve to drive because I got this throbbing in my arm, and I told him, I should take this next exit here because it takes you over to the University Hospital, and so he
Within
took
about
that,
15 minutes he
and
was there.
they told me after that if I'd have been 15 minutes later, I wouldn't be around anymore. So,
Yeah.
you know, these things aren't just coincidences, you know, there's somebody else in charge. So, we've been blessed.
What's the most important thing in your life?
What's the most important thing in your
Us.
life? Oh,
The gospel,
testimonies, the gospel, eternal families.
family.
I'm sure it's
That's,
family.
most important, you know. It is us.
People and
It is
having
us.
those people be together with you forever.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that that can happen. I don't know how people handle death, or if they didn't have that belief. I don't know how they carry on with it, because
You know,
that's some
I gave a little short talk here recently, and when the word missionaries were together, and I told about one of Connie's ancestors, William Davis, who had been in what was it called back then?
Wilford Woodruff went and found
The
that
brother,
Yeah,
United.
Brethren.
United Brethren. He was one of the
United
United Brethren.
And Wilford Woodruff came. They started their own church, kind of, and they broke away from
And prayed and looked for
United
the
Methodists
truth.
or something. And because they wanted to know truth. And so Wilford Woodruff came, baptized all 500 of these brethren. And then, of course, then they've got families. So
Yeah.
families joined the church. And then you start looking at it. How many lives did that affect? Generations since then. Has it made a difference in their lives? And then with temple work and family history, how many generations back before that? And as I was telling the missionaries, I says, you know, you make the difference in the life of one person when you baptize them. You think. But we really don't know. For generations, that can make a difference. Generations forward and generations past. And, you know, the gospel is about family. You know, we're children of our Father in heaven, and He wants us to succeed, and He's made it a way that we can be together forever.
If you could tell your kids or grandkids one thing, what would it be?
If you could tell them one thing, find your own testimony. Don't rely on everybody else's. Find your own.
Yeah.
Do whatever it takes, because if you have that knowledge, you can do anything.
Well, and then I think, too, is just let them know what you believe. Let them know that you have a testimony and that you stand by it. That's the most important. The gospel, our relationship with our Father in heaven and Jesus Christ and one another, our families. Those are the most important things.
Be
Make it-
good.
Make it happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't follow our examples, just do the right thing.
Yeah.
So, happy
Happy
50th wedding anniversary, Dave and Connie. Now, chances are, by the time you see this, you will have already come to our 50th wedding anniversary. But we're getting this out of the way, so you guys have something to look at come your 50th. We congratulate you on all of those years together. Connie, way to go, sticking around with Dave.
And Dave, way to go. You don't get your 2 cents in too much, but you're pretty patient. I was just telling Craig, I remembered the first time we ever met you guys. You hadn't been married that long. You had bought that house over there. And you were walking down Silver Star while we were out front working in the yard. And I remember Connie had long hair, clear down to her... What would you say?
Her backside.
And we started chatting with them, and the first thing we said after they left was, wow, can she talk fast? But we love you guys, and I am very proud to be your best friend, Connie.
She'll lead the music anytime you want. So we've had a great relationship over all these years. Hope it continues on for a long time. Hope all is well down the road. So, congratulations.
Okay, we're going.
Happy 50th anniversary, Connie and Dave. We love you.
Love you.
Dave and Connie, it's your 50th anniversary. Congratulations. I'd say I hope everything is going well, but since I've been kind of watching your little bottle show on the Facebook, I know you're still doing all right. Those guys with the heart attacks kind of got to stick together. So happy anniversary, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, so when I think of Emett, I learned pretty early on. Let me think. I met Jeremy in 97? 98, sorry. And I learned pretty early on that Connie was not just Julie's best friend, but she was her sister. They were more than friends, they were family. And really early on, Connie treated me the same. So she treated me just like Julie did, and I felt so much love for her. And she was like that from the beginning. And through our whole wedding and everything she did, so much. And I felt like, I just remember feeling really in awe that she would do that when I hadn't been around very long. And then I watched her as Julie got really sick, and through the years I watched how much she did for her, and she, I don't know, I still can't, I guess for me it was just still quite amazing that there would be somebody who would do so much for someone else. She went above and beyond. And I didn't get to be around Dave as much till later, and I learned it's the same thing. So they're a pretty amazing couple. You are a pretty amazing couple. And they treat my kids like their own grandkids, and my kids still remember them and still call them Grandpa Dave. Grandpa Dave took them fishing. Yeah. And they remember that, and they it just kept going, and I remember as well, when I think of them, what Carrie mentioned with going to Michigan and being there for her sailing, and I remember just how much Connie loves these kids, Julie's kids. And when Julie died, I feel like they found peace in Connie. Jeremy talks about that a lot, that she reminds him of his mom and how she acts and how she hugs him, how he feels when she's around. And I can see how much he loves her and you, Dave, but specifically just with Julie.
Dave's a great hugger.
Dave's a great hugger. But I watched that and it just touched my heart so much. And when Julie passed away, I could see how much pain Connie was in. And she like lost a piece of her. And I just know that those two were meant to be sisters on this earth. They had this amazing relationship, and Dave is just wonderful and so kind and loving. And I just when I joined the family till now, I just realized and noticed how much you both do and what a difference you both make in this family's life, and I'm sure many more, but I see it firsthand with the Thomas family. And we love you so much and wish you a happy 50th anniversary and many more to come.
Your turn.
I say happy anniversary day in Connie, and I know this.
Say it loud.
You guys is the part of the family to the Thomas, and I say thank you for doing everything for the Julie children and Ted. And I know I'm married with Ted for 7 years and almost. And you guys so humble, so loving these children. And I know Connie, you was a good friend of Julie and forever. And friends is God in this life. And I say thank you for you do for the Thomas family and the children, the Julie I know again, and you guys so amazing brothers and sisters for this. And I know Connie, you do big heart, and Dave so humble again. Thank you for everything.
I thought you said Dave was so funny.
And Dave is so funny. He's so funny. Connie, you're so loving people, and you always do for many, many sisters and family. Thank you again. Keep going. Go for it.
Well, mine goes back from as far as I can remember. Being over at the Emmett's house was just it was a second home for me many years, and what I remember a lot about the Emmett home, obviously besides the brownies, which is just kind of the norm. The caramel brownies is just kind of that staple, but I just enjoyed the feeling of being over there, playing with your boys, and you know, trying to learn how to draw, which never fruitioned into anything career-wise, obviously, but just the feeling of it, the joy of it, just wonderful boys that you raised, and girls. Obviously, I was hanging out with the boys a little bit more than the girls, but just the whole family atmosphere. I think how you accepting is like Dad said when you're just. He told a story to us just briefly about how accepting Dave was of Dad and just the friend he became, and that's how it felt. It felt like a second home to me, and I think that's just been a big blessing in my life, and I still feel that way. When I get here and I even come back to the ward, I hug you. I feel like I'm hugging my mom, I'm hugging another father and another mother, and it's just a blessing in my life, and that has always been that way. And I'm just so grateful for all the love that you've shown me, and just grateful. I understand a little bit more of just how important just loving people is, and just being accepting of who they are, and that's what Christ is all about, and that Christ-centered life that you guys have shown ever since I can remember is only strengthened my testimony over the years, and I'm very grateful and thankful for you both. I'm grateful, as you can see, the ability, obviously Christ is what changes lives, but people are set in our lives for that moment and for those moments, and I see that with my sister and with my father, and you know, realize how big a part he played in getting our family to where we are, and we're very eternally grateful for that. Definitely.
Okay, the first time I knew Dave was into drugs was when he went to Idaho searching for pot. And he called me and he said,
Stop lying. Now get serious.
I'm being serious.
He didn't smoke no pot.
He says, are you in Idaho? And I says, yes. And he says, I'm in Idaho too. And I says, what are you up here? And he says, I'm looking for pot. And I said, pot? And he says, yeah, there's a place up here in Twin Falls where a guy wants to sell me some pot. And I didn't understand what he was saying, pots. He rented a car, he drove to Idaho, and he bought a pot up there and made a ton of money off it.
Yeah.
He didn't take Connie, so when there's pot around, that man will go wherever it's at.
That's ridiculous. Can we start over?
It's just gonna keep rolling. Whatever works.
And I did want to say that I love your mom and dad, Connie for all that she did for Julie. Connie for all that she did for Julie. And for Dave helping out when I was a counselor and I couldn't be there helping him. But it worked out good because Dave got to be the bishop and that worked out good.
That worked out good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out good for you guys too. But other than that, it was just on again, off again relationship, friends, your mom cooking and baking and bringing it over and we eating it, and it's great. I can never repay you, Connie, for all the food. But friends forever, you and Dave.